as to whatever they've agreed upon. So last year I stood before you and said it's a good faith gesture. It was necessary to put this back in place to give the board an opportunity to do it. Again, it's a similar situation other than I think that time has run out. Sit down, negotiate it, get it done, then come back to us. So I don't think it's necessary at this point.
Gentleman behind Mr. Girardi.
Russell Morris, Marblehead Street. Just a question about the use of our emergency staff. If we have them running around on non-emergency cases and we have a situation where we do have a true emergency, we don't have our people. So why don't we keep our people for emergencies?
Mr. Piero.
Jerry Piero, 17 Roger Circle. May I ask how much did Tommy get back from the ambulance, from the fire department? The ambulance get paid for every pupil they bring to the hospital. And they pay. Now, where this money goes?
You want the fire chief to answer your question?
If I understand your question correctly, you're asking how much revenue is generated per year?
How much is generated per year from the ambulance to transfer people to the hospital?
Currently, and we do only emergency service, is around $140,000 per year.
Per year.
Correct.
And that goes back to the town government.
That goes back into the ambulance enterprise account, which runs the entire emergency medical services, including salaries, training, fuel, and vehicle replacement, everything to do with the ambulance, and then some. There's a little left over each year, which then goes into, or is left over for purchase of the large capital items such as the ambulance.
And that's a racket in case you pay, say, $10 million a year, that comes off, $10 million, right?
Correct. That's transferred every year out of ambulance enterprise into the fire department to supplement the budget, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. The main motion under Article 7 is that the town vote to reauthorize the Emergency Medical Services Revolving Fund as voted as Article 15, establish revolving fund for emergency medical services at April 1999 town meeting as specified in Article 7 as printed in the warrant. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those opposed? No. The motion is lost. Article 8. Ms. Bailey.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $600 for the purpose of funding an efficiency expert program for town employees, and that said sum be transferred from the overlay reserve.
Heard the motion. Does the Board of the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Sturdivant.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee, once again, does not recommend. We think this is a great idea. We want to work with all the departments to get it into place, but we'd like to do it in April, roll out with where all new programs should be rolled out.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Ms. Bailey.
The Board of Selectmen recommends 3-2.
On the motion, which is to appropriate the sum of $600 for the purpose of funding an efficiency expert program for town employees, and that said sum be transferred from the overlay reserve. Ms. Bailey.
Mr. Moderator, if I could ask town meetings indulgence for fewer than 5 minutes.
You don't need town meetings indulgence
well,
for
I need
fewer
their
than
indulgence
5
anyway. What I would like to do is just briefly describe this incentive program to you. What it is an incentive program aimed at gaining further financial efficiencies in the town. And the way this would be done would be by encouraging employees to think outside the box and rewarding them for doing so and coming up with cost savings ideas. This program would allow both school department and general government to participate. Employees would submit ideas to a committee of their peers, which would be appointed by the town administrator, and the committee would then review the ideas and research them and recommend one each month to receive the award of $100 and recognition. While we all hope that the town is 100% efficient, in practice, encouraging employees to think outside the box via incentive programs is a tried and true method in corporate America to bring about innovation. We can stand here and repeatedly worry about the budget next year, or we can start innovating and try to do something. Admittedly, this is a small step, but I think it's an important one to start generating ideas and to start getting folks to learn to think of new ways and not to be afraid to suggest and, like I said, to think outside the box. Waiting until April only delays potential savings. It's tough times, and we really need to be innovative now. Most important, as it notes on the slide behind me, is that if we save nothing, we spend nothing. So we have nothing to lose here and everything to gain. There's no harm in trying. I would urge you to please support Article 8. Thank you.
Gentleman at the microphone, please state your name and address again, sir.
Mel Webster, 51 Spruce Road. You always hear people saying that governments should act more like private businesses, and this is an example of that. And it's not going to cost anything if there are no savings. This really is a no-brainer. This should pass. This is what government should be doing to try to save money. Thanks.
Any further discussion under the main motion on Article 8? Do you want me to read it again? On the motion, $600 from overlay reserve for the purpose of the article. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Article 9. Mr. Murphy?
I move to appropriate the sum of $19,860 for the purpose of replacing drainage culverts and improving drainage on Bigham Road, and that said sum be transferred from the overlay reserve.
Committee have a recommendation. Mr. Witz.
The Finance Committee recommends this article.
On the motion, do you wish to be heard, Mr. Murphy?
The Board of Selectmen recommends.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? $19,860 for the purpose of replacing drainage culverts and improving drainage on Bigham Road, and to said sum to be transferred from the overlay reserve. Mr. Woodmansee?
Just like a little bit of a clarification. I understand they're going to be doing a lot of work on Route 62. Isn't some of this stuff included in what they're going to do in culverts and drains and sidewalks and everything else? Is that included in it, or what? Or would this not be included in it?
Mr. Hanlon?
Yeah, the answer is yes and no.
I hope that's just part of the answer.
That area obviously was identified some years ago, and when the Route 62 design, when we were putting the Route 62 design together, we asked the state to enlarge as much as they could to take into our replacement or installation of new drainage structures. They only would go into the road area. So this goes beyond the road area and through easement of other land, and the total amount of money is $61,400 beyond what Mass Highway will contribute. Now, through our Stormwater Management Act, which allows us to go through with flood hazard mitigation processes, we were able to get a FEMA grant for 3/4 of that amount of money. So our share is with some $4,500 for, we estimate for contingency, engineering contingency. we're on the hook for $19,860, which will clean up that total area of Bingham Road out to and across Route 62. It will be done in conjunction with the Route 62 project.
We'll be done with it. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We'll have to contract it out separately, but it'll be done in conjunction with the project.
Lady at the microphone, please state your name and address, ma'am.
Marie Keene, 15 Tower Hill Road. In reference to Article 10, I'm not jumping ahead, but this, and I believe this sorely needs to be done in this area of town, but does it fall into the 193 Elm Street area? And
No, it doesn't, Marie. It doesn't fall into
not part of
that.
the Row Farm?
No, two separate issues.
Thank you.
It does not fall into that development area, the area that we're going to discuss on Article 10. It's
No,
not
the
part of-
wetlands are across the street from this property that some of those drainage eventually outfall into.
Thank you.
On the motion, which is for $19,860 to be transferred from overlay reserve for the purposes of the article. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Article 10. Mr. Murphy.
I move to appropriate the sum of $1,250,000, and the Board of Selectmen is authorized to acquire by purchase or take by eminent domain pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 79, the land with all improvements, structures, and buildings, if any, as shown on North Reading Assessor's Map 62, Parcel 64, located on 193 Elm Street, consisting of approximately 27 acres, more or less, meaning and intending to include all of the land at said location owned by Dana A. Rowe or their successors in title for the purpose of open space and recreation and/or other municipal purposes, that the acquisition, development, operation, and maintenance of such property shall be designated and included within the Hillview... added that there. Excuse me. Back up a couple words there. Sorry, let me back up a second. Entitled, for the purpose of open space and recreation and/or other municipal purposes. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $1,250,000 under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subpart 3, or any other enabling authority, that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to contract for and expend any federal or state aid available for the project, provided that the amount of the authorized borrowing shall be reduced by the amount of such aid received prior to the issuance of bonds or notes under this vote, and that a 7-person ad hoc 193 Elm Street Property Reuse Committee is hereby established for the purpose of evaluating the potential uses of the property and making a recommendation to the town for the development and use of the property, the members of which shall be appointed by the Board of Selectmen to serve for a period of 3 years or until work is completed.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Sturdivant.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee voted not to recommend the purchase of this property. There is no defined municipal use for this at this point in time. Based on a recent appraisal done by the town, it is well overpriced. We just don't recommend it at this point in time. We don't have the money.
Mr. Murphy.
By a vote of 4 to 1, the Board of Selectmen do not recommend. We put the motion before you this evening so that I did not get up here and say, motion to pass over. This article was included on the warrant. The board worked to try to find a municipal use. We also tried very diligently to gain access to the property to do other investigative work. We were